You guys are here to learn about how to write personal statements. And I know for a lot of you, you're writing for deadlines coming up like next week. So maybe very timely. So let's first talk about what colleges want to know about you. So, because these are personal statements, the focus should be on you and your interests, experiences, and goals. What you don't need to tell them in your personal statement is information that will already be apparent from your application through transcripts, test scores, or some schools require resumes or CVs. So the personal statement is unique in that it gives you an opportunity to describe what are your particular strengths and successes in ways that some of that other information cannot provide. So it should be and appropriately more personal. So, what are the goals that you should have when you tell them about yourself? Ideally, you want to do it through the form of a story. So, either one or two stories that really illustrates what your strengths are. And you want those stories to show what's important to you, why it's important to you, and how it connects to your current educational goals. So, what constitutes a good story? Well, for sure, they should be true and they shouldn't be too exaggerated. I've had a few students tell me, oh, I just made this up. And I would say 90% of the time, I had already suspected that because some things just weren't adding up or they just weren't sounding very realistic. So, there will be meaningful stories from your life. You don't need to make it up. The story should be somewhat current. Like, unless it's a life altering event, probably things that happened when you were a toddler or a really young child may not be as effective or applicable to describing who you are today. You want to focus on stories that really illustrate things about you that are unique and to describe them in ways that the reader can visualize what happened and be able to clearly understand why that event was important or significant in your life. So here is a list of sample traits. It's not exhaustive, but it's just a starting place to give you some ideas to think about who you are and what stories you might tell that illustrate these character traits. I'll let you look through this on your own when I send you the PowerPoint. One question I've had from students is, well, how personal should my personal statement be? So I would say you want to choose topics that you're comfortable sharing with strangers because indeed you have no idea who's going to read it in the admissions office. The purpose of a personal statement is to really show that you have self awareness about who you are and you have the ability to reflect on who you are because that helps you in becoming better or becoming more mature. You don't always have to share about the most earth shattering experiences. Even small experiences or events can be used to illustrate more deep and complex personal traits. But it's in how you tell the story and how you um, show the meaning for you. So here are the typical transfer questions that schools ask. These are drawn mostly from the UW's prompts. They will want to know what is your academic history, what is your major and career goals, and why, this school is important for you. Why are you choosing this school instead of some other one? They want to know what has challenged or inspired you. Are there particular challenges you've had to overcome? And there's always this cultural component. They want to know what cultural experiences have shaped you and your understanding of the world. And by cultural experiences, they don't mean just ethnic culture. They actually give a definition of the kind of communities that shape what the culture of your life has been influenced by. So, academic history. Here you want to talk about what you have studied so far and why. It's a place where you could talk about some accomplishments in school. So you can describe maybe classes that you've taken, especially the ones that show you have completed all prerequisites necessary for the major you're applying to. So you don't need to list those classes by their names or list them one by one because that will already be in your transcripts. All you have to do is let them know that all the prerequisites needed have been completed or they will be completed by, such and such a time. If you are the first person in your family to attend college, that's always a positive thing to bring up. So now I'm going to give some examples of how you can talk about your academic history. I'm going to show examples like telling versus showing. So generally, the telling way is not as effective. So if you were to say something like, through my hard work, I earned a 4.0 in all my math and business classes at Bellevue College, and I am ready to be more challenged at blah, blah, blah university. This is not an effective example because it mostly just says, oh, I got good grades in math and business. And they already would know that if they have access to your transcript. Here is something about your academic history that shows more about who you are, and it helps explain why you would choose maybe an accounting major or business major. My strong natural affinity for math and numbers allowed me to excel in my core accounting classes at Bellevue College. I used and strengthened those skills by working as a math and accounting tutor in the Academic Success Center. I found that when I can help others to learn a concept or skill, I understand it more thoroughly as well. When talking about majors and goals, you will want to address why you chose this major and maybe talk about what this particular school you're applying to can do for you that maybe another school cannot. Like, what are some of its programs that are unique and uniquely interesting for you? And you may want to touch upon what you want to do after you graduate, if you know. So, again, here's an example. This is the less preferred telling way. I once had to be a translator for, oh no, I want Somali patient and her anxiety levels. I want to pursue nursing and I care about providing health for others in my Somali American community in their own language. So this is not as effective because it's just told with facts. There's no story behind it. It's harder to visualize what's going on. Um, it leaves the reader with questions like why? Why was there the need for a translator? How does that connect to the current goals to pursue nursing? So here is a more showing way that's more effective. You speak Somali, right? Can you help translate? While volunteering at St. Jude Hospital, I was suddenly pulled into a physical therapy session for an elderly Somali woman because there was no bilingual staff on shift. As I entered the room, I could hear the agitation in the patient's voice. My hip is hurting so much. I can't walk, but they don't seem to believe me. I've been waiting over an hour. Please tell them so they'll help me. I instinctively reassured her in her mother tongue and her countenance immediately changed. The therapist's face reflected surprise and relief as I did my best to translate medical terms. This experience opened my eyes to how easily language barriers can cause patients to be disregarded and increase distress. My plans to pursue nursing are not merely a personal career goal, but also to address the healthcare needs in the Somali American community. Excellent care offered with dignity and understanding should not be only for the English fluent. So when you contrast the telling way and the showing way, you can easily visualize what happened to this writer. And there's been much more elaboration upon why this story makes a meaningful impact on this person's choice of a nursing career. So, this story is based on a true Bellevue College student. Why this school? So, if you want to address why you're applying to this particular school, you want to focus on the features or programs of that school that are of particular interest to you. So, you don't want to tell them what programs the school has, the school already knows what they are. You need to talk about which programs are of interest to you and why. So you may have to do some research to get to know what opportunities are available for that particular school. So ways that you can do this research is by looking at the school's mission statement, their vision and value statement if they have it. Some schools have a diversity statement. Many public universities have undergraduate research opportunities that you may be interested in, especially in the STEM fields. Some schools have study abroad programs that you might be particularly interested in. And if you are applying to a school simply because of its location, let's say you're a working mom, or you're a mom with young children, or you have responsibilities to your family that lives here, you don't have the option to apply to out of state schools. That is also a significant and legitimate reason for applying to a particular school. Hopefully, it's not the only one, but there's nothing wrong with talking about that if that is your circumstance. So, the way that you might summarize your research is by saying something like, as someone who values blah, 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 and this is where you could maybe connect to a common value that this um, in their value statement. You could go on, say, in particular, I'm interested in blah, 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 which are the strengths of your such and such program. Moreover, once I fulfill my remaining prerequisites, I would really look forward to taking such and such classes, as well as to work with expert teachers and mentors like, and here you could even talk about specific professors and the kinds of research they're doing. And then you could end by saying, ultimately, I want to. And then that's where you state your own goals. Now, another part of the prompt that at least UW gives you is to ask about any significant life experiences. So, um, for this prompt, you basically need to explain, well, what happened? What is the life experience? And here you can talk about either things that were difficult or challenging, or it could be an inspirational experience. The key is, what did you learn about yourself or the wider world from the experience that you describe? So you want to focus on showing how your experience empowers you and prepares you for the upcoming university challenges. So if you talk about a significant life experience, ideally it would have some kind of connection to your current goals now. If you choose to talk about a challenging life experience, make sure you match the details to the importance of the story's effect on your life. So, for some types of challenging experiences, you want to be descriptive, but definitely not melodramatic. So if the experience has shaped who you are or your goals, then that is an experience where it's more important to give descriptive details that show its impact on your life. So here is an example when maybe it's better not to go into too much detail, and it is more effective to just tell about what the challenge was. So you might, if you got sick and that affected your performance in school or why you had to drop out for a few quarters, you might just say, I got very sick with pneumonia or got very sick with something. And as a result, blah, 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 blah. You can just describe that. It would be not effective to show by saying things like, I tried to lie still, but shivers racked my body. By 3 a.m., all the bed sheets were soaked with sweat, and I struggled to breathe. Because of the pneumonia, I had to miss my midterm exam and blah, 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 blah. This is an instance where it's not effective. It's counterproductive to be too detailed. So here is an example from one of my students of a challenging life experience, and I'm going to show you both a telling way and the more effective showing way. So if you were to say, I was born as the only girl in a family in China and was treated very unfairly. I worked hard to do well academically and eventually went to college even though my dad didn't want to pay for it. Today, I hope to continue my education to obtain an accounting degree, even though my in laws don't support my decision. So, this version gives all the facts, but the way that it's written doesn't have the kind of details, it doesn't have the kind of emotional weight that makes the story compelling and memorable. So, here is a more showing way. The Chinese proverb, a stupid son is better than a clever daughter, reflects the higher value given to males in China. Due to the one child policy, my mother was expected to give birth to a son to carry on the family's name. My parents prayed every day for me to be a son. However, in August 1982, I was born the only daughter to a family with only one male heir. Because I was a girl, my father was shamed, my mother was not respected, and I was neglected. Growing up, my grandmother's favor was clearly reserved for my male cousins. But my mother protected and cherished me and always said I was the treasure of her life. Her belief in my value motivated me to excel in male dominated schools, and she sacrificed to send me to junior college when my father didn't feel it was worthwhile to educate a daughter. After changing careers, I am finally pursuing my dream of a bachelor's degree in accounting, despite in laws who tell me that as a woman and mother, I have no need of further education. So, this is a true account from one of my previous students, and she got into her school of choice. She graduated, and she's currently supporting her family as an accountant. So, it's quite inspiring. So here are examples of a positive life experience. And again, I'll show the less preferred telling way and then a more effective showing way. So, the telling way. I was very inspired when I heard a speaker share about how she was saved from human trafficking. I was shocked that this still happens in the world today. Now, I also want to become a lawyer to fight against this type of injustice. So again, this is not effective because it doesn't answer how and why questions that the reader might have. Like, why was she inspired by the speaker? Um, how did the speaker inspire her? So here's the more effective showing version. I attended a conference where I heard a young woman named Anya courageously share her story as a survivor of childhood sex trafficking in the Philippines. I was inspired by the little known work of International Justice Mission, who rescued her from the brothel. They offered her aftercare to heal from the trauma and supported her to testify against her perpetrators, which ultimately resulted in the conviction and incarceration of the brothel owners. The lawyers from IJM that helped Anya find justice in a court of law are also helping to bring about systemic changes in their judiciary, which inspires me to pursue a career in blah, 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 blah. So this story has much more detail and it gives a better picture of why that one woman's testimony was so inspiring that it influenced this writer to now consider a career either in law or some type of social justice. Now, the fourth type of prompt that UW and many other schools have is about your cultural experiences. And particularly, they want to know how your cultural experiences give you insight into how to relate more effectively in a very diverse world. So here you want to describe the kind of world that you come from, because all our communities that we're a part of have its own cultural stamp. And so you can choose which sub community um, that you're from or has influenced you, and the type of culture it has, and how that has impacted you. So from that, you could then talk about what types of insights, or what unique thing about you can you bring to the school you're applying to and add to its diversity. So keep in mind that cultural experiences does not only mean ethnically cultural type experiences. You want to describe an experience that shows how you're mindful about yourself and how you fit into a larger world. Actually, those types of insights you can put into any part of your essay. So here is how the University of Washington defines culture and community. They say that our families and communities often define us and our individual worlds. Community might refer to your cultural group, extended family, religious group, neighborhood or school, sports team or club, coworkers, etc. So here again, I'm going to give you two examples. Um, the telling way. I once volunteered at a homeless shelter and thought the people there would be really different from me, but later found out I shouldn't judge too fast and that I can have a lot in common with homeless people. So here it doesn't really tell you why it was important that this person volunteered at a homeless shelter. It also shows that this person, yeah, maybe didn't have a really clear view of what's going on in her world, and you don't know how she changed from being someone who was maybe a bit judgmental about homeless people to realizing that she may have some things in common. Here's the more showing example. I once volunteered at a homeless shelter as part of my school's community outreach project. I was a bit judgmental at first. I thought people became homeless because they didn't want to work or were addicted to drugs or alcohol. However, I got to know a woman who had worked in Chicago as a teacher's assistant until her mother became ill. She had to sell most of her belongings to move back to Seattle. After paying off her mother's debts and funeral, she ended up living in her car, which has made it hard to find a new job. Learning about her daily challenges in meeting simple needs for hygiene while living out of a car opened my eyes to the toll homelessness takes on human dignity. Though I have not personally experienced homelessness, I have moved often due to rent increases and now live with extended family to reduce costs. Though our housing circumstances are different, we share common family values. I now want to explore majors in social justice or urban planning to address sustainable solutions for housing insecurity. So in the second example, you can picture why she had a change of heart about what a homeless person might look like or what kind of circumstances might contribute to it. And there's effective connection to why she tells the story because it is impacting her decision to go into, to choose her major. So now I'm going to pivot and talk a little bit about just form and style of your essays. So you definitely want to start your essay with some kind of appeal to emotions to hook your reader in and keep them hooked. So don't start with a boring um, sentence. Start either with a story or some kind of a statement that is surprising or unexpected to pull your reader in. You want to share who you are by telling one or two effective and insightful stories. You need to avoid obvious statements and flattery. Like, don't say something that's obvious to most people already. And you don't need to say nice things to the school just to be polite. I know that culturally, in some cultures, it seems rude if you don't say something nice to the people you're writing to. But within the US cultural context and any US schools you're applying to, you don't need to add any kind of like just nice things. You don't have to say something just to be nice or to be polite. You also want to avoid cliches or, quotations that are meant to inspire. It's better just to use your own words. And it is important to stay within the word limit. For one, they don't have time to read really, really long essays. It probably will irritate whoever is in the admissions office who's reading your essay. And if you don't stay within the word limit, you're showing that you're not able to follow directions. That also is not a positive thing. So, what makes a good story? You want to use descriptive language to show why the story you're telling is significant. And if you write it well, you won't have to tell them why you're telling them the story. It will be obvious to them. Use specific details because they not only make your story more interesting, that really is what's going to let the reader know it's a true story. It'll sound more credible when you provide the kind of details that only a person that lived that would know. Choose words for their ability to have some emotional impact. So there's two ways to tell a story. One is just cut and dry, just the facts. But the purpose of this personal statement is to allow them to know who you are and feel positively towards you. So you don't want to be melodramatic because then it makes you sound like you exaggerate and maybe are not honest. But you do want to use an appropriate level of emotional tone so that the reader becomes invested in your story and will remember it. So you also want to tell the reader not just the events or what happened in the story, but you also need to show insights that you learned from this experience and why this experience is a significant story to tell for someone to get to know who you are and why you want to pursue further education. So I'm going to go over a couple of the types of effective hooks that at least the UW said are some of the best they've ever seen. So I'm going to go over two examples and explain why they were effective. So one is, as I look back, my lack of action seems disgraceful, but at the time I was simply trying to survive. The other one is, amid an alien expanse of green, the air dry from a season without rain, I labored. So in this first one, I've kind of color coded the words in that first sentence to highlight why they are effective. So just even the phrase, as I look back, it shows that you as a writer have the ability to self reflect. The phrase, my lack of action seems disgraceful. It's intriguing because these words have a lot of bold meaning, right? My lack of action seems disgraceful. That word disgraceful has a lot of emotional weight to it. And it makes the reader wonder, what did they do? And lack of action, what did they not do that was so disgraceful? And then the phrase, but at the time, I was simply trying to survive. That phrase, simply trying to survive, creates a lot of curiosity. Um, it makes the reader think, wow, something of life or death significance was on the line. So lots of vocabulary here that's designed to capture the reader's interest and curiosity. In this one, amid an alien expanse of green, the air dry from a season without rain, I labored. So the words in blue kind of engage the reader by just like dropping them directly into the story. Like they don't give any other explanation, but they just start describing what's happening, and it creates curiosity and interest. It's a really short sentence, actually, but you can tell that the words were carefully chosen to arouse curiosity by hinting at more things. So when they use the words alien expanse of green, so or amid an alien expanse of green, you picture someone who's like in the middle of all this green stuff, and somehow it's alien. Like, what is alien? What is that green stuff? And then there's a little bit more of a hint in the next phrase, the dry air from a season without rain. It's like, they're in a place that's full of green, but oh, it's been really dry and there's no rain. Why is this person telling me about the weather conditions? What's going on? And then that last phrase, I labored. What type of labor is this person doing? And what type of labor would likely be affected by a season without rain? So here, this makes you think, is this person working on a farm? Is this person maybe uh, a seasonal worker from another country and they're laboring on a farm? So now I'm going to give some examples of beginnings to avoid. So I'll give the example in green and then the reasons why it's not effective in white. So allow me to introduce myself. My name is, and this states the obvious. They don't need you to use words to tell them your name. They'll have that in the application. To whom it may concern. That's the way that you might write an email or a memo, but not really an essay. That's a personal statement. I would like to thank the admissions committee for considering my application. So this is a nice thing to say, but it sounds like something that would be in a personal letter or something. And you don't know the person reading your essay. So personal niceties are not necessary. And it kind of states the obvious. Um, of course, you would appreciate someone reading your essay because you want to go to that school. So any of these kinds of polite sentences just meant for politeness within the US context is not necessary. It doesn't mean you need to be rude in your essay. It's just that you don't need to add things that don't really talk anything about yourself, but it's just meant to be polite. Starting off by things like in response to question number one, or in response to prompt number one, or the three reasons why I am a good candidate for the University of Washington is, these are not appropriate um, beginnings to an essay because it sounds rigid and it sounds more appropriate for someone with maybe a high school level of writing, or you're writing for some kind of high school assignment or something. So a little bit more um, I don't know if I like the word sophisticated, but a smoother way to start your essay without making an announcement of what you're doing is always better writing. Like I said earlier, you want to avoid flattery. And one of the reasons for that is oftentimes I see in people's papers, they want to tell the school something nice about the school. Like, I want to attend the University of Washington because it is one of the top 5 universities for business or engineering or nursing or computer science or something. You don't need to tell them that because they likely already know what their ranking is. And then any kinds of comments about the school status or rank tends to reflect poorly on you because it either sounds like you're insincere or that you're obsessed with social status. Neither of those things would reflect well on you. So it's really important to avoid flattery. What are effective endings? So you want to, at the end of your essay, summarize your story and explain how it shows who you are and how it connects to your current goals. You want to interpret the meaning of the key events that you shared or show why they're significant to your life. Why are these life defining moments that you're that you're sharing from your essay? So here's some examples of endings to avoid. It is my sincere hope that you will grant me the opportunity to attend your prestigious school. So again, it's a obvious statement, and it sounds like you're just flattering them. Something like, my life experience has taught me that if you work hard and never give up, you will make your dream come true. I hear like versions of this almost every year when I'm looking at students' personal statements. Probably 30 to 50% of them talk about, you know, working hard or making their dreams come true. It tends it may be true, but because it's so often used, it tends to sound overly simplistic. And actually, the statement that if you work really hard, your dream will come true, it may it's actually not always true. Sometimes people work hard and their dreams don't come true. So it sounds cliche. And if you say something like that, it makes it sound like you don't have a very good grasp of what's real either. So avoid trite cliches anywhere in your essay. Don't use, like I said earlier, don't use quotations unless it's really meaningful, and it's often not very effective. When if for your writing process, expect that you should write and write again. So make sure you have enough time to write multiple drafts. Like you don't have to write an entirely different essay for each school. You can have the same basic essay, but make sure you adapt and customize each essay for a specific school, because some schools will have slightly different prompts or they have slightly different values, and you want to write to that. Um, oh, here I have a link. So a lot of the things that I've talked about in terms of form and style, I have pulled those together into a document that is questions for revising personal statements. I have a link here, and I think it would be really helpful. I derived those questions from the many, many personal statements I've worked on with students over the years. What are some of your next steps? So get feedback. So get feedback from your peers, people that know you well, but also get feedback from people who don't know you at all. So you can meet with Writing Lab tutor anytime. This is our online, a link to our online writing lab. Here's our hours. We're even open on the weekends from 11 to 4. Oh, one thing to note, BC is closed tomorrow, so none of our services are available for tomorrow, February 10th. But otherwise, the writing lab is open, and I and another writing lab instructor was offering some appointment times specifically for personal statements. So I don't know if I have any more availability at this late date, but anyways, you can check through that link there. So to recap our workshop today, make sure that you share a vivid and genuine story that's significant to you. These stories should show a growing awareness of yourself and how you connect to the larger world. You want to clearly show how your struggles or your triumphs have prepared you for your future goals, and make sure you stay within the word limit. Here are some web resources that may be helpful for you. Feel free to look through these. There's links here. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing. And also, I'm going to stop recording so that if you guys have questions, you can